Is this working?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. You just gotta tap your thing for your camera, but you know that. You're a live expert.
I am so new to
Hey.
TikTok that I'm just trying to get all this figured out. So
Hey, I made a sign for you. Do you see that? I
sorry.
got I got a new sign.
Oh, that is so cool. I do see that. All right, did I join correctly?
Yep, you're
Yes.
perfect.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
I got this together. It's wrong. I can't figure. I'm mirrored, and I can't figure nothing out.
I
I'm
do that too when I've got my paintings behind me. I'm like the salamander, and I'm totally pointing the wrong way.
So yeah, I got a new little toy, and I thought I only have so many letters and so much space. Damn it, I did it again. See, I can't do it right. But I was like, ooh, I'm gonna make this cool, and so I
Yeah,
tried.
that's super cool.
Get my
Hey,
chair.
thanks for making time for us tonight. Really
Yes,
appreciate
thank you. Thank you for joining. Nice meeting you. I'm Dred. Pleasure to have you tonight. Thank you. Your artwork
Jason.
just speaks for
Yes,
itself.
he was in St.
Beautiful.
Louis. And let's just touch on your travels. You were everywhere. I mean, you traveled so much. That one spell of 3 weeks on the road in a row. I saw your map, just a big old loop from Charlotte to Denver, back up home up north, like
Yeah.
to Dallas. I mean, man, you hit some miles.
Yeah, it was a lot of miles for sure. Yeah, it's crazy because the time goes by quickly. At the same time, at the end of the trip, like we are wiped. It feels like we were gone forever. So there's always a lot to catch up on, checking on the animals, and getting back to commissions and sending orders out and whatnot. But thankfully, everybody is super understanding, and they know that we're on the road a good portion of the year for the shows, and so I'm really grateful for everybody being super understanding.
I think you and Chris were just the two that I seen travel the most as far as living vicariously through social media. You guys just, I mean, the amount of miles and oil changes and tires and rotations you must have had to do. Because, I mean, you guys just for all year just going at it. I think you two deserve gold medals for traveling the U.S. this year. So,
Well, thank you.
So you mentioned the animals. So a lot of people, you and I talked about this in St. Louis. A lot of people don't know that you yourself are a keeper. In fact, you were a keeper before you went pro into art, right?
Yeah. I have basically had my entire career in working with animals and have simultaneously been keeping and breeding throughout that entire time, and still do. But yeah, it's kind of funny because there's been quite a few times where people will introduce me on things, or basically are like, "Oh, it's so crazy that you do all this animal work and you don't even keep." And I'm like, "Actually, I have been keeping for decades."
Wow.
But I don't have a huge presence in terms of my animals anymore because I'm not producing as much, and I'm not actively trying to sell a whole lot. So I only have basically a really slimmed down collection of what was once a really large grouping of animals. And so I'm not like pushing really hard to be able to get those animals out.
What is in this collection? Is it like banded Fiji iguanas and like just really rare stuff? Like what do you keep?
So tree monitors have absolutely captured my heart. They have become my absolute favorite. They're so much fun. So for a good while there, I was doing my best to have pairs and trios of every single color type.
Yeah.
But that was before I ended up moving. So we were starting to acquire quite a few tree monitors. And at that time, I also had like Amazon tree boas and emerald tree boas. I was still breeding Ackies. I still had retics and tortoises and a bunch of stuff. But after moving twice,
You weren't playing around. I mean, that's some pretty high end animals. That's
Yeah,
the stuff
it is.
that takes an experienced keeper.
so the tree monitors are currently, I've got blue tree monitors, black tree monitors, and yellows. And I breed red striped gargoyle geckos. And so that's
Okay.
like what it's down to now. And it's crazy because it used to take me so long to do maintenance on everybody when it was a big variety of things to take care of. And now that I've slimmed it down to just those guys, like I get up, I work out, I missed all the monitors, I'll feed them in the mornings, I'll do the geckos as well, and hop in the shower and then get ready for work. So it makes life a lot easier to have something a little bit more manageable, especially with the traveling.
Right.
Your studio was kind of new this year, right? That you've been working out of in the last 6 or 8 months.
Yeah, actually, right before joining you guys, I had a little pop up on Google where it like shows you memories, and it'll remind you of things you were doing. And it was exactly 1 year ago that we were starting to get some furniture into the studio. It was pretty bare bones before, and because there was so much construction being done with that space, we didn't really officially start working in there until I would say June, which was right before show season.
Yep.
So
That's kind of what I remembered. Yeah, that's what I remembered from watching your progress.
I really wanted to get in there and I really wanted to create, but we were on the road. And so I kept telling myself, I'm like, man, the second show season's over. Like, I want to hit that drawing board and just not stop. And so I was having a little bit of difficulty just with being tired and trying to catch up from the shows.
Hell yeah.
And had a little bit of downtime. And a friend of mine recommended, he's like, well, how about you try something a little different? There's a lot of animals that you want to draw, that you enjoy, but you don't usually draw them. Usually you're focused on commission work or what people are asking for. And, it might be something fun to do for you. And so what we've been doing for the last 3 weeks is every morning getting on at 9 a.m. and doing a live study with everybody Monday through Friday. And that's been like, I feel like reinvigorating when it comes to getting a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So that's really cool. I'm surprised it didn't feel like more work. That's awesome, though.
A little bit of both. I am usually pretty tired after them, and I'm a little bit exhausted, but it's at the same time a good feeling because I'm producing more work now than I ever really have.
Wow. So, yeah, you're so fast.
Most of my like high detail realism pieces, my larger ones, will take about 20-ish hours, roughly.
Oh, and wow.
So fast. Because I watch your lives a bunch, and like it's a marker. You're not like sketching it out and then putting down ink and then filling in color and then brush and then shading. Like you're just boom, you're going. And it's like it's impressive because you go with such speed. I mean, it turns out amazing, of course, but it's just such speed. That's what's really interesting to me is how much product you crank out, and stay creative and stay inspired. I don't know how you balance that, but it's awesome.
I think a lot of what's kind of brought me back to being excited again is literally just drawing animals that I've wanted to draw for a long time and haven't.
Very cool.
4 years. So when I started doing art full time, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what this was going to look like. I had no goals because I didn't even know this was possible. So a lot of people are like, oh my God, it's so crazy. You get to live out like your dream. And I'm like,
what year was that?
Like, I didn't know this existed. So February of 2020 is when I went full time with artwork. And
okay.
So I've been doing it full time since. And when I made that jump, I knew that it was something I wanted to do, but I didn't have a set plan. And so I didn't know what that was going to look like in the future. I didn't know what my goals were going to be. And, what do you do when you're freshly self-employed and you don't really know whether or not you can do it? You take any job that you can because, put the lights on, you got to pay the bills. And at that time I was the main person working. And so, I pretty much spent the last 4 years primarily focused on client work, and then I would try to sneak in some traditional pieces of popular requests that people were asking for, but I really didn't have what I felt like any time to do anything for me. And
right.
So a lot of ideas that have been sitting there for 4 years that I think it's time for them to start coming out.
Is that what's happening now at the 9 a.m. morning studies when you're just rocking out?
Yeah.
Is that kind of getting back to that a little bit?
For larger pieces I would like to do, but it's definitely helped kind of kick back that creativity and enjoyment in creating again. It's not necessarily just drawing with a purpose because people have been asking for it. It's drawing a cool animal that I think is neat that I want to share with everybody.
Yeah.
So you were there for the beta. We're chatting about fish, and I can go off on a tangent.
Yeah, I know, and we've chatted about some of your frog work. You just really, I feel diversified, and maybe I just don't know enough about the history of the pieces you've done, but I feel like lately, it's really been. It's shocking what animal you're gonna capture next. Hey, hats off to our viewers. We did hit 10,000 likes by 7:05 p.m., which is usually our goal.
We did.
5 minutes to top of the after the hour, because I get on about 15 before to get invites and stuff out. So all of our people were working that thumb out, and we hit 10K likes already at 7:05, like we like to do. So thank you guys for everyone hanging out and watching. This is our last show for 24. And I'm glad we could schedule you. I know your time is tight. I don't know that I've seen you on podcasts and interviews and stuff. You don't really do a lot of that, do you?
I actually have, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is my first time doing one on TikTok.
There's
Right.
another world's first
Yeah,
TikTok naughty
yeah.
business.
I'm super new to TikTok, and so that's why I'm like, did I even join right? Is this
Yeah.
correct?
It was perfect.
You're
Because when
good.
I try to do basically a draw it with me thing a couple weeks ago, where it was like on a Sunday, and I had a friend of mine with his daughters. They wanted to draw alongside me at the same time. And I
Really?
tried to bring them up, and I was having trouble bringing them up on the screen, and so I'm like, is this okay? But yeah, so I've done podcasts before, but I've never done anything on TikTok. I'm very new to TikTok, and I've had the account for a while, but I did spend a very long period of time forgetting about it.
Right. That's all right.
I did
Well, then
post
so then the
on-
people in the audience, make sure Adeline's got the TikTok experience. Everyone we have on here that's either YouTube or IG seasoned and never steps foot on this app, they're always at the end of it, they're like, man, that was so fun. That was so interactive because people can give you cowboy hats and glasses and like all kinds of various gifts that are interactive and goofy and fun. And it's a lot more lighthearted. And that's why Dred and I kind of tackled this platform instead of the crowded space that is YouTube because this was nothing organized or scheduled, and that's what we've done. This is week 24 for us. Well,
Wow.
week 21, show 24, right?
Yes.
And it's really snowballed, and we love it. And there's a lot of great community, and it's bringing people together. And we're doing exotic pets going forward in 25. So
Nice.
you don't just do reptiles. I got drawn into your art from your reptile work. I have to humble brag, not so humble. There's my piece, and I'm going to get me a real print someday. This is
That
what
is
I got in
awesome.
St. Louis, and I even got it autographed because I have been a fan since I first saw your stuff. And I mean, you and I hadn't even spoke ever, and I shared your live on TikTok with like 30 people, and I'm like, oh my god, did you guys see this? And I think I turned at least 5 other people on that are still following
Oh,
you to
yeah.
this day, like watch you on the regular.
Well,
And so I've been impressed with you all along. I think it's amazing. I don't know how you go so quickly with it.
Are you coming to Pomona? Do you make it out here?
I wish it would be really fun. It is a very, very long drive for us, though.
Yes.
It might be
Yeah.
fun to kind of try to fly out for funsies, just to kind of check out a show. But at the present moment, it's a little bit tough trying to get out that far west. So
Right. Okay.
I definitely
Well, maybe
am.
one day I can run into you and meet you in person. So
That would be awesome. Yeah, no.
Oh
I would
yeah,
love
for
to
sure.
do that.
Super cool. All
Yeah,
right.
and she's as personable on camera as she is in real life. Like that's what I always
Yeah,
enjoyed about
that's
you.
what he's been
She's down to
saying.
earth.
He's like, man, you can't just wait. She's just awesome. So
Aw.
thank you again for hanging with us and educating us. We did have a question come through.
Yeah.
Was you self-taught or did you go through some type, an art school? Or I mean, what kind of helped you get there? You just always learned to draw, loved it when you was a kid?
I drew a lot as a kid. Was obsessed with art class in high school. So on my lunch breaks in high school, I would hang out in the art room and work on stuff. Outside of that, though, I am not classically taught. And so I did high school art classes. I did take one drawing class in one of my community colleges. It was digital drawing. So at that time, we were working on tablets attached to the computer and learning some techniques. But I am self-taught. And yeah, I actually spent like 8 or 9 years not doing any artwork before I ended up getting back into this and going full time with it. So
You answered like 2 questions I had on deck, so perfect.
Yeah,
Keep
there it
running,
is.
keep running.
it's never too late to get back into it for all the folks that enjoy doing artwork, but they feel like their work isn't good enough, or oh man, I used to draw a long time ago, but I suck at it. No, it's never too late to jump back in.
That's cool. I did a bunch of artwork in high school, stuff for all the plays, all the promotion and advertising, the T-shirts, all the clubs, the Spanish club, this, that, and the other. And I did get out of it. I could still draw better than the average person, but I am years out of practice, so that's very encouraging to hear.
Oh, for sure. And like one thing that I thought was interesting when I did jump back in, I did jump in at the skill level I left off.
Huh.
However, though, as I got older, or maybe jumping into it older, I felt like my eye was developed a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I was able to, I think a lot of it is a mental shift. And a lot of it is being willing to learn from your mistakes and being able to apply that moving forward. And that's how you get better without tearing yourself down.
What's an
So
example of that? Like, what's a mistake? Well, I mean, are we going to go Bob Ross here? There's no mistakes, only happy accidents. You got to love Bob Ross, right?
honestly, he's not wrong. That's how people get better. Nobody starts at like an insane skill over level where they can paint, absolutely crazy paintings and do all this detail. Like nobody starts like that. Everybody starts out simple with some pencils and sketches and learning anatomy, learning color. It all takes up a lot of time to learn. And you need a lot of patience, and you need a lot of patience with yourself to be able to develop that. And if you don't have the patience, that is fine, but it is something that is achievable for everybody. Artwork is a learned skill, just like any other trade. Some people might have more of an aptitude than others, and some people might have more of an interest than others. But if it's something that you're interested in, you want to get back into it, you definitely can.
Right.
And I think getting into it at a later time, I was able to develop my eye a little bit differently when it came to critiquing my own pieces and being able to apply the things that, say I didn't sketch out the reference long enough and the anatomy was a little wonky. And I noticed that. I'm not going to tear myself down and go, oh man, this piece sucks. I'm going to just keep that in mind for next time and spend a little bit more time working on that area that I felt like I neglected. So that's how I try to continue to be better for my work.
I have so many questions. So, anatomy and structure. So, a kingfisher is wildly different than a shoebill stork, which is different than an extinct zebra, predecessor, which is different than a nautilus, which is different than a salamander, so on and so forth. I mean, they're all quite different skeletal structures, if they even have skeletons, and one of them I named doesn't. So, why? How do you nail the anatomy and the proportions? I feel like proportions, even like take a human body, we can all relate to a human, drawing a person on paper. Like the length of the from the elbow to the wrist to the head, there's all these proportions that you can learn. That it's ironic how the head shape is the same as the form, when someone's proportionally, balanced, and how we draw is, trying to replicate that. Is there any tricks to drawing a salamander versus a nautilus versus a bird, or a snake, for God's sake? Like, how do you get the anatomy down?
I highly recommend research on top of more research. So usually I'll work off of one main reference image, depending on the piece. Usually a lot, like for these morning sketches, as an example, for people that have seen that or maybe might know about it, I will use one main reference, typically from Wikimedia Commons, so that way everybody can access it and see it and practice that if they would like on their own. But on the side, I will also have other smaller, I'll have like Google image search up on the side with different images of that species. And you'll see them in different poses, you'll see them in different angles, and that will kind of give me a better idea of the head shape, the body shape. It also really helps. I do have a little bit of a leg up in the fact that I've worked with a really big variety of animals. And so I'm very familiar with a lot of the animal's anatomy just from working with them in person. But I also love going to zoos. I go to museums. I go to friends' private collections. I basically get as much material as possible to be able to keep for reference for myself to be able to learn from. So the Museum of Osteology is an amazing place to go check out if you're interested in anatomy or animals. It's a lot of research, a lot of practicing. I think it's really good to practice freehand sketching and freehand proportions. It's really hard to do. It's not easy. I'm always still working on it. Like the pieces I make aren't always 100% correct, but it's something that is really good to develop. That being said, for people that use projectors or that use the grid system, I don't think there's any shame in that. I think it is a wonderful tool, and the old masters damn well would be using those tools if they had them available to them. And they did, they did have some forms of projection, and they did have the grid system. So when it comes to certain specific pieces, if I'm kind of short on time, or if there's something that's pretty complex, sometimes I'll either project my own sketch or I'll project the image. I'll do a very light tracing just for some of the proportions in general. And then after that, I'll turn it off, and then I'll sketch in the details myself. So that is another method that I do use for my pieces. So I use both. And I don't think projection should be fully relied upon, because that doesn't strengthen your skills in terms of So, I mean, you've seen me at the shows where I'm working on stuff freehand. I'm working, um, basically doing performance art in front of people, where I've got
Yeah.
my reference in front of me and I'm trying my best to match it up. So I think it's really good to develop both.
The grid has always worked against me, and my drawings always end up wonky because I'm too hyper focused on what should be in this and not the overall lay. There's the cowboy hat. That's what I'm talking about. The grid works against me. I love freehand, for better or worse. Just do it, and then
Yeah.
erase the lines, or do a new piece of paper. Just start over.
Well, there's so many
Uh,
different methods that you can do, and there's something for everybody. Like what works for one person may not work for another, and that is totally cool, totally fine. There's no rules with artwork. So yeah, I mean, whatever works.
so there's not many people now, and this I would think in the last, let's call it 30 years, it's been the push for anybody artistic to go to computers, go graphic design, learn Illustrator. And Adobe Illustrator, when I last was involved with art, was just mind blowing what you could do in it. And I'm sure technology's much more advanced now. I'm just ignorant to it because I don't play in that world anymore. But what drove you? I felt like you were destined. Everyone said you're going to be homeless and weaving baskets in the street for a nickel. You're just going to draw pieces of paper and give them out on the subway. It's impossible to be an artist by pen and paper anymore. You can't do that. Go to the computer. Everything's going to computer. Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever else there is. How did you buck that trend, in the last 15, 30 years? How did you stay on paper and stay dogmatic to your roots that made you excel? Because I feel like that's a big pressure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I heard that growing up too. I thankfully was supported by a lot of family and also steered away from it by other family members as well. So, I mean, it was tough. And that world that my grandparents grew up in, that my parents grew up in, the art world was completely different than it looks today. When I told my grandmom in 2020, she was a watercolor artist, a professional watercolor artist,
Oh,
and
wow.
when I told her that I was going to be doing art, um, I she was excited for me, and I could totally see the fear on her face as well. And like, I'm not saying her face dropped, but she was excited and I think nervous because the world she grew up in, it was so much harder for any artist to get visibility. You had to get into juried art shows. If you were lucky, you would get into a gallery, which would take
Yep.
50% of whatever you made. If they were being honest and they weren't upcharging or tacking on a higher dollar amount on your piece and not paying it, not paying you. So it was a really hard place to navigate. And I think she was a little bit fearful of that with me.
Yeah, because there's only so many Norman Rockwells, MC Eschers, Andy Warhols. There was only so many of them. Jackson Pollard. There was only so many of them that that you could take away and still name 40, 50, 60 years later.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. And
and then it just graphic art, cartoon. Honestly, there was a huge upsurge. I feel like in comic books and that kind of graphic art, and that kind of leaned towards the Adobe Illustrator world of graphics and the slick glossy and all the deep shadows, but not realistic. Almost it was a hyperbolic vision of what realism was.
oh, for
And
sure.
not
Yeah.
many people are doing what you do. Not
Tons.
many at all.
So what's interesting is I have started out traditional, grew up doing a lot of traditional media. We didn't really have digital. I didn't get into tablets until after high school. And I had a little bamboo tablet and I was, figuring out my digital drawing and it was absolutely horrendous. It was pretty rough at that time. But I did do a lot of work on both simultaneously. And then I stopped for many years because I was focused on my jobs and working. And when I got back into it, I was doing mostly traditional work, but was also, I wanted to try out the iPad. I had heard so many things about the iPad. And I had used a bamboo tablet before that. This iPad, it sounded super amazing. And once I tried it and I used the Procreate app, I fell in love with it. And Procreate is amazing. It's a $10 app and you can have watercolor brushes, oil paint brushes. You can literally make a piece that looks 100% traditional digitally. And I thought that was
Wow.
super cool. So I played with that a lot. And some of my early pieces that I am currently retiring, but I do still have some of them online. Talking too fast. Those are digital paintings. So there's not many of them, but I did start out doing a lot of digital work. But what I found was people enjoy watching the process.
Yeah, it
People
sounds like that's run its course for you. The way it sounds in your voice, like
people
it
enjoy
kind of.
connecting with the artwork. They like being able to see something physical too. When you work on a digital piece, it's the same amount of work, but nobody gets to take home an original. And
Ah,
I think that once I started really thinking about that and what I would want for myself, I would personally prefer to have something handmade that somebody created physically that, is
yeah.
one of a kind than,
Oh my
a
god.
digital piece, which like, yes, it's the same amount of work and a lot of work goes into it. I've done digital painting. I know it's the same techniques, you just have some more tools to basically be at your disposal. So once I
And
started
cleanup is easier. Cleanup's a lot easier.
yeah, yeah, no kidding. You could take it anywhere. So once I started kind of posting and sharing some of my traditional pieces, they started to get a little bit more attention where people were like, oh, this is something that is physically being made right now in front of our face. This isn't something that, is generated. And I do think digital painting doesn't get as much recognition as it should when it comes
Mhm.
to the amount of work that goes into it. Because a lot of people like they're using the exact same techniques as you would be doing with a traditional piece. But I just really enjoy, I think, not just the physical media, but the physical limitations. So one of the problems I ran into when I first started doing digital painting is guess how much you can zoom into each scale.
Uh,
Guess who spent over 20 hours rendering the top half of a jaw on a blue dream monitor and never ended up finishing it.
well, you could do it in 20 minutes or less on with your hand.
Yes. So
Wow.
I got a little too sucked into some of the detail work that I was capable of with that infinite zoom. It's nice to have a physical limitation where like I physically cannot continue to add detail to something.
Very cool.
That kind of helped. That kind of helped a little bit. And
I got
I just think it's fun. I think it's fun. I think it's good practice. I think it's nice being able to work on something and take care of it in the way that I know if I don't use the right technique or I don't apply different things or I don't, continue to learn, it's not going to turn out well. And so it's not necessarily that it like raises the stakes, but it kind of makes it a little bit more fun for
so
me.
there's bookworms that have like the gold level Barnes and Noble membership on the app, and then there's those that go to the library and grab the book off the shelf. You're the grab the book off the shelf kind of gal. You want the physical, you want the physical piece, and I think that's admirable that it's missing nowadays a lot. And
I
so I
like
think
it.
that's why you excel, is because you do put it actually on something tangible. Do you
That's
do
fun.
dog? Do you on your
Yeah.
commissions? Do you do dog portraits, or what kind of animals do you take or not take?
So I do not do dogs and cats. I know a lot of artists that specialize in dogs and cats specifically that do amazing jobs with dogs and cats. And I'm always happy to recommend my fellow artist friends for those types of jobs. I do not do them myself. I have more of an interest, like in drawing exotics because I believe they are very underrepresented. There's a lot of animals out there that need conservation help that people don't know exist. And I love dogs. Like I'm a huge dog lover. Absolutely love dogs. In love with dogs. And I would love my artist friends to actually. I would love to commission them to draw the dogs that I have had. But I do not do dog portraits myself.
Right.
And the main reason being because I like specializing in exotics, but dogs are also very particular. And, if you draw a king snake that's got a certain pattern and it's got a certain head structure, it typically will look like that king snake for the most part. When it comes to dogs, there's so much more to them. They're so expressive that I would personally rather have somebody draw a dog that specializes in them than
Fair enough.
Well, where can we? So, do you supply any of your art to anywhere? I mean, where can we find your work?
I have it on my website. I do wholesale as well to pet stores, so Birds and Bees Pet Shop in Crystal Lake. I'm actually currently at their staff party, which is why I'm here.
Oh,
Okay.
So Birds and Bees Pet Shop in Crystal Lake, Illinois, Twin Cities Reptiles in Minneapolis, DFW Reptarium
There
in
we go.
Denver. So yeah, there's
Okay.
a few shops that carry my artwork.
I think I got my Brazilian rainbow boa Bible from Birds and Bees, and they sent a bookmark that was the "Thank you, Phil" handwritten out to me. I do believe it was from them.
Oh wow, no way.
Do I know you're at an event right now, but is there anything you have to show, or you guys need to go check out her page?
Yeah, check out her Instagram. Go to her Instagram. You
Yeah,
will
go
be
to her
blown
IG
away.
page.
Oh wait. I guess I think if you've seen the morning sketches, then you may have seen this piece. But I did gift one of the prints of one of the pieces I did. So I'm currently at the manager of the shop's house because he's having a holiday party and invited everybody. So I brought him a print so I could.
Thank you for carving us a little time. I'm
Yeah.
so appreciative.
This is very cool. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm like I'm not in my studio. I don't have all my artworort with me.
Oh, I love it.
Wow.
The pieces.
That is
Rendering the feathers to render them
Yeah.
is so tricky,
And I did
especially in black. That's even more challenging. You can't
mean, it
hide
looks-
behind color.
it looks alive when you it's there, it's alive. Wow.
Someone
that is
mentioned and
very
they complimented you. Do you ever go to think about putting down the brush and marker and picking up a needle? Everyone ever
Yeah.
provide you to do tattoos?
Everybody asks me to do tattoo work, man.
good. I need something to match my koi sleeve, snake wise on this arm.
I've got a naked arm. I've got my
Yeah,
animal.
right. I got here it is, girl. Have fun.
No, I have been approached quite a few times about doing tattoos. So I will tell you why I do not do tattoos. One, because I enjoy working on physical media that I can play around with and not worry about messing up. Two,
Right.
I don't, as much as I am familiar with anatomy, I'm not a specialist. I'm not going to be able to tell you how a piece is going to lay out on your body.
Yeah.
And it's going to age over time. That is something that tattoo artists specialize in. And
Yep.
so I've had many people approach me to do tattoo design work, even though I don't physically put tattoos on people.
Okay.
I don't design tattoos. I'm happy to design an art piece for somebody, and if they would like to take that to a tattoo artist to translate into tattoo work, they can. However, when you hire a tattoo artist, you're also hiring them for their portfolio and their artwork and their ability to be able to make something that you enjoy into a beautiful design on your skin.
They're gonna put a little bit of their style into it.
It's what you're paying them to do.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to be okay with that. I've got a piece, right, a $6,000 piece on my arm that he put his style into it, and I love it every day.
Exactly. That same thing. I've got a full sleeve of different reptiles and amphibians, and I knew for 6 years before I got it done that I wanted to go with that particular artist. He was actually a customer
Yes.
at Pet Store. I used to sell him crickets. And he showed me his portfolio. I fell in love with it, and I was like, one day, you're going to do this sleeve. One day.
That is awesome. That is so cool. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I always love recommending different tattoo artists as well. There are herp-oriented tattoo artists out there. So I
Yes.
actually started a group on Facebook for reptile artists to connect with each other, and there are tattoo artists in there as well. And there was a thread of tattoo artists where their locations and their pages are posted in there. So I'm always happy to recommend. Like I said, I
That's
love
very
recommending
cool.
artists too. Like it's a really great community. I think it's awesome to be able to support and promote each other. So the Pup Canvas is the dog artist that I absolutely love her work. Crystal Sullivan, she's reptile keeper. She does amazing dog portraits. So the Pup Canvas is her Facebook page, and then I got my tattoo work done by Midwest Love on Instagram. So his name's Mark Laddish, and he, like I said, he's was a reptile keeper. He used to come in because he had a chameleon, and he appreciates herps and all kinds of wildlife, and so I knew that he was going to be the person to do my work. So.
You've alluded to this. You said you worked with so many other species before, so you knew some about anatomy. Now you're mentioning selling crickets at the shop and coming into the shop. What were you doing before you got into art full time, or what did you have a chunk of that you got this experience in some of this animal anatomy and knowledge at?
So I was lucky enough to be raised in a household full of animals. So my dad was super into keeping exotics, and my mom encouraged it. And so I grew up with saltwater, freshwater,
Mm.
small mammals, reptiles, amphibians, a little bit of everything.
There you
And
go. Okay.
I started doing riding lessons at a very young age. I was always into horses, so they're kind of
Right.
my first. So I grew up with animals, and then and I had so many fish tanks, man. And I would make little binders and booklets and index cards with Latin names. I was constantly looking at my dad's Atlas of Marine Aquarium Fishes by Dr. Axelrod,
Yep.
or all the
Oh
medical
yes.
textbooks and biology textbooks that my dad had. Those were what I lived for. And it's kind of funny. My parents actually got a call by the school once because I was drawing the gestation stages of a dog with puppies in utero.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to handle that. And they didn't know what to make of it. And so they called my parents and they're like, hey, so these are some of her drawings. And it's because I really enjoy the medical textbooks.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a vet growing up. And it was like, gotta be a vet when I grow up, gotta do it. I wanted to do some scientific illustration alongside of it.
Hmm.
And when I was 14, I was at an aquarium shop in Deerfield, Illinois, and I was talking to a friend and explaining, actually telling them facts about arowanas because they had a silver arowana at the shop. And the owner of the store overheard me and was like, hey, are you 16? I'm like, no. And he's like, are you looking for a job? Like, I'd love to have you work here. Like, you're clearly explaining to somebody else, like, about these fish. I'm like, well, I'm 14. Like, I'm not really old enough to work yet. But my dad wrote a letter of basically allowing me to volunteer at the store. And Steve was kind enough to slip me some 20s and some bills under the table as a thank you for coming in. So that's pretty much like how I started working with
Ah,
him.
that's so
So
cool.
I did that for 8 years and worked at the Wildlife Discovery Center in Lake Forest, Illinois, which had one of the largest collections of venomous snakes and different exotics as well. And so I worked at both places for a long time. And then after that, I moved to Marengo, Illinois, and started working at Birds and Bees Pet Shop in Crystal Lake. So I worked there for a few years as well.
There's not a camp. There's not a camp there, is there?
No, but they do have movie nights on Friday the 13th where they do play
Oh, that's awesome.
movies on the beach there at Crystal Lake. So, but yeah, so I have worked with animals for a very long time. Very grateful to have worked with a very very big diverse species of animals too. And after I had been at Birds and Beasts for a while, I was taking some classes in graphic design, and I was doing some graphic design work on the side for an auction company that was up and coming. And that auction company offered my current husband, Chris, at the time we were friends, like we weren't even dating, offered him a job as their full-time photographer, and they wanted me to be their graphic designer. So, because we were doing graphic design and photography as a team, as another side hustle. So we ended up moving to Indiana. The first 6 months were great. It was really tough leaving the pet store and leaving all of my friends and everything I knew behind, but we
Yeah.
did it. And they totally like lied to us about a lot.
Oh God.
They were going to cover all of our, health insurance and have all these, when it came to pay, they weren't paying what they told us they were going to pay. They said they were going to help cover the move. That never happened. So the first 6 months seemed great. And then after that, it went very downhill very quickly. Sadly, the management got like super toxic. And so as a way to kind of decompress, I decided I would try and start sketching again, and I would maybe try the Inktober challenge. And so, for those unfamiliar, it's a prompt list for every day in October where you do a little drawing once a day, and it'll be totally random. And I made all of my drawings animal related. And I did little 1 inch by 1 inch squares because I didn't have any time after work to do real drawings.
Ha,
And that's literally what kicked all of this off.
really? That
Yes.
reminds me a little bit of like out of on the back of like cereal boxes or something when I was a kid, because I'm old, and it'd be like draw Snappy the turtle and send it was
Yeah.
like a turtle smiling with the little derby cap on, and you,
Yeah.
you sent that in for a stamp, and I don't think anything ever came of it, but It reminds me of that. Those opportunities really just kind of light a fire sometimes, you know?
Yeah. It was a fun little thing to try and to do, and I never thought anything would come of it. A friend asked if I had an art page, and I'm like, "Pfft, an art page? Ha! Like
What's
that's
that?
yeah, an art page. Why would I have an art page?" And it kind of made me think a little bit. I'm like, well, maybe it'll be a cool spot to just to like put all my artwork in.
So what year was that?
That was 2018, I think was the first time I did an Inktober. And then 2019, Inktober is where it all kicked off.
Shit.
So,
So
yeah.
then you went and you jumped in 2020. That escalated quickly.
Oh man, it did. Yeah. So I literally I started with the sketches, and then just from knowing people in the animal industry that knew me from working with animals, they would ask me to either draw their snakes or their lizards, or hey, I'm a new breeder. I really would like a logo. And man, so many kind people that trusted me with their designs. Some of the stuff from really early on, I'm looking at now, and I'm like, oh man. But yeah, I started doing
I'm
graphic.
sorry that's your identity. My bad. I can do way better now.
Yeah. So it literally just snowballed where I was, I'm at a salaried job. I'm supposed to be 9 to 5. I'm getting home at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock some nights, and then staying up until midnight or 1 in the morning working on people's artwork after work every day.
Yeah.
And after doing that for so long, like I was getting pretty tired, but I was still going with it. And man, like going into that job was just so miserable. It was so hard to get myself to like go into work every day. And everybody around me knew that. And Chris was really what made all of this happen. He's like, Addie, I think you need to quit. Like you're not happy. You're dying here. You're doing artwork until all the wee hours of the morning. Imagine if you did this all day. Imagine if you were able to do this full time. And I didn't think it was serious. I thought he was being sweet and supportive, but I was hanging out with some friends and they said the same thing. And a friend of mine had recently gone full time with her business as well. And she was also encouraging me. She's like, you need to just go for it. You need to do it.
So you took right what came of that not being not so good. You took that, say, negativeness and turned it into something great, positive that's really worked out.
And what a great
a lot of
partner.
people can't do that. You know, a lot of people can't. They just they stall. But you didn't. It took you a little bit to get it together and grab that other gear, but you did it.
Yeah, it was definitely really tough. And I felt like I was pretty alone. I did make some wonderful friends down there, which I'm still very close with. But to leave the community and to be somewhere, where there wasn't really reptile shows, like there's no reptile shops, there isn't a huge community like there is in this area.
Right.
It was pretty tough. So doing the artwork was a nice way to get back to it. And then with all that amazing encouragement, I did it. I sent my letter in, and it was I felt so sick. I was so sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
I put in my 2 weeks, and they're like, "Hey, if you want to go now, you can." And I'm like, "All right, I'm out."
Bye.
Peace.
Bye. I'm already packed.
And
Yeah.
the next morning, they fired Chris.
Of course they did.
Yes.
Wow.
So they asked him, what
Hey,
the
hon,
deal-
how about we both go full time at this? I mean, I got a little daylight in my schedule now.
Yeah, it ended up working out perfectly. They asked him what the deal was, if I was going to call them, and he's like, "No, she's done. Like she is done working here. Like you guys have done enough to her. Like she's not working here anymore." And they're like, "All right, I guess we're going to let you go." And he goes, "Really?" And he said the owner of the company was looking at him like he was waiting for him to like, "Please, no, I'm sorry." And he goes, "Okay, awesome." And he just started packing his stuff.
Bye.
So I got a call that morning. "Hey, babe, guess what happened?" I'm like, "What happened?" He's like, "They let me go." And I go, "No way."
Right.
So it ended up working out
So
really
that's got to
well.
be a little pucker factor back at home, though.
Oh, yeah, no, it was super scary. He wasn't planning on quitting there.
Right.
And I think they were thinking that he was going to quit and they were going to probably just try to jump the gun on that, but he wasn't. He wasn't planning on quitting, but it ended up working out really well. And yeah, so that's what I mean when people ask me, what would you do differently if you could, plan doing your artwork full time, or words of wisdom for somebody wanting to get into it? We didn't have a plan. And so it was super scary. I didn't know how much it would cost for our bills versus what was coming in. This was all stuff that I had to learn on the fly, which we ended up doing. But at that time, it was super scary, and not to mention COVID and all the craziness of the world. So it ended up working out, and I was
Uh,
able. I had plenty of work to keep me busy in a
I
very
mean, that's a great work. You're at home with a piece of paper. You don't have to meet you know all your contacts and shipping stuff off. You
yeah.
don't have to go to public. I mean, you were in a great place at a bad time to where you
Yes,
could work
it
isolated and
worked out very
people had
well.
income, extra, maybe some extra cash. Hey, I got an extra $1,000. Hey, I want this piece of art. Can you do this?
And that
I bet
the
that was
boom in the
awesome.
animal industry, the boom in the animal industry, truthfully, because my work is animal adjacent, we were able to basically be a part of that. So when people, were stuck at home, they wanted to get new pets. They wanted to get some projects going. They wanted to work on their terrarium builds and their aquariums. And so because I was working on so many logos for new breeders and portraits of animals that people were getting, it ended up working out really well for us. And I was doing daily live streams. It's funny because I hadn't done them since like 2020, but I used to do daily live streams where I would do a little mini canvas every day. And this was on Facebook Live. And, that's kind of like how I started building a little bit more of an online presence. But,
Huh?
um, but yeah, so that's
How did you
basically
get
how it
your
all started.
so to go from obviously a great artist who doesn't broadcast themselves or does people like in the reptile world that aren't social media savvy or aren't a people person, sometimes you have there's only so far down the road you can go until you really embrace the whole portfolio of self promotion, and do it with grace and do it the right way. How did you develop the associations with Copic? Am I saying that right? The marker company? And I mean, because that's what takes you from, oh, here's a good artist, she can draw really well, to, oh, here's a freaking professional. I mean, you've got this association with Copic, you've got NARBC, you've got Bob Vu, the Southeast Reptile Show. You're doing all these logos that they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars printing shirts on annually. I mean, and then you're doing the art pieces for US Arc. I'm wearing my US Arc shirt here. I'm a bronze member, and you're doing these pieces that they auction off for tons of money, all for a good cause. How did you get tapped to these really super serious professional associations that took you from being, oh, she's a good artist on paper to freaking pro? Well, what was that transition at for you?
I think a lot of it was I'm very grateful in that I have actually been in the industry for a very long time. I may
Uh,
not have been doing artwork that entire time, but I have been going to shows for over 10 years, and NARBC is my home show. So Brian and Bob, I used to go to the show before I could drink. I was vanning before I could drink legally. And so they knew me. They knew me from working alongside other breeders. When I was at the Wildlife Discovery Center, we would have tables there, and so they
okay.
knew for a long time from that. When they saw the artwork that I was working on, I think they knew, I think based on my personality, where that might end up going. And I'm very grateful in that they put a lot of trust in me and that they put a lot of encouragement in me in the very beginning. And so I think a lot of it, truthfully, is just chatting with people, talking to people, offering
Hell
help.
yeah. I
I
mean,
think
I grew exponentially by going to Dallas. I drove 7.5 hours on a day and a half trip, and the connections and the people I made in the Green Tree Python welcomed me into the highest echelons. And I'm like, I'm nobody. And it was so worthwhile. I remember I was on we did a live together from my hotel room that night, and I was like, you guys, that was freaking awesome, and then go to St. Louis, and I got to meet Craig from Bash Coder, Jen, who's in the comments, Basement, Jen's with TJ Exotics, in Basement, Python's Jason, and Reptile or Bobby. I was friends with them beforehand online, and then getting to meet them in person and further those connections into real friendships, not just online acquaintances. And you're so right. Like Dred's going to go to the Pomona show. I've been to Dallas. I'm going to Daytona this year, and I want to go to Bob's show in February. I'm hoping to make Tinley as well at some point. But he's going to Pomona. We're trying to really just go and satellite to these shows. And I'm
yeah.
like, bro, it is so worth it. Whatever it costs. You don't even have to, I go and I don't even buy animals. I literally didn't buy animals for 2 shows. And it's like, just go and be there and soak in the moment and meet people and say hi. It is so valuable.
100%. That truthfully, that's my favorite part about the shows. Obviously, it started with the animals, but after a certain period of time, you start seeing a lot of a lot of the same animals at the shows, and you get to know breeders, and you get to know the people behind all of it. And to me, that
Mm-hmm.
is super fascinating and super fun. I always enjoy chatting with people. And I'm sorry in advance to anybody that comes over while I'm painting. I have horrible RBF while I'm drawing or painting. I've had a few people tell me, they're like, hey, I wanted to come over to say hi, but you looked really angry while you were painting and I didn't want to bother you. I'm like, no, 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 no.
When
That's
you're
just
in the zone, you're in the zone.
like, I'm sorry. So
Oh, Kyle's giving you a hard time. I know Kyle and you are friends from way back when. He's
yeah.
oh yeah, Kyle. She's the rudest. Yeah, I totally agree.
Terrible. Just
Yeah.
me mugging everybody. But yeah, I mean, it's super fun making connections, meeting people, and like you learn so much about people that even outside of reptiles or outside of the animal hobby. It's always really fun learning like what people do for a living, their other hobbies and interests as well. There's so much overlap, like horse girls. There's a lot of the equestrian community that is into reptiles and amphibians, and I started a Facebook group specifically for that, for people that
Ah,
go and they go herping. Like there's so many cool ways to connect with other keepers, and
and this is why we're going to start doing an exotic pet keeper once a month in 2025. We're going to kind of branch out. We don't want to be necessarily Trap Talk 2.0. We're doing people from all different backgrounds. We had Charlie from Shed Testing on. We have tarantula keepers. We have yourself, our first artist. We have keepers and rescue folks that are really entertaining with a great online presence, but they're not breeders. We do all different species, not just ball pythons. And we space our ball python people out so that it's not repetitious.
yeah, for
And,
sure.
and we enjoy that, but we're like, let's grow the community more because everyone that's got reptiles was a little kid with a hamster and a dog and a cat and a
Yeah.
fish and whatever else. We all in the reptile community are well versed or at least well experienced in a lot of animals. And so we're going to start doing exotic pets in 25. Our first is going to be Shaw's Exotics. He's a falconer in the UK.
That's cool.
Rich is an artist. He's in the comments, and he helped make that connection for us. So, do you have any advice of what would you like to see as an exotic pet keeper, or where should we go one week out of a month? I'm hoping a reef keeper, obviously, but like as far as February, March, April, and so on, what any suggestions that you can give us that might be of interest to
Are you talking
explore?
about events specifically to go check
No,
out?
no, species of animals or the type. We're gonna stay away from cats and dogs and equine. That's a whole nother level.
Yeah,
We're
it's a
kind of
whole nother
like,
ball game.
yeah, we're like hedgehogs and sugar gliders and up. We're not going. We're not going to go into necessarily domesticated animals.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, what do you think would be interesting and fun, or that it's a resource that might be open to us just from reaching out and making connections, even online? What do you? Well, I'm just looking for advice, I guess.
So a friend of mine, she works at the Field Museum in the entomology department, and it is crazy when you think about the amount of living organisms. Insects. Insects are going to be the biggest category. There are so many different species of insects. They can't all be cataloged and they can't all be identified. Most of them don't even have common names. And yet they get the smallest amount of interest publicly and the smallest amount of funding when it comes to research and when it comes to displaying. And so it was really neat talking to her because they've got basically the highest number of specimens out of any of the other departments. Yet at the same time, not a whole lot of people pay attention to them. People are more interested in the paleontology lab or in the mammals or the taxidermy or the gems, that stuff that's really bright and exciting.
Huh.
And I think learning more about insects is really fascinating to me because the more I learn about them and the more I dive deep into just looking up references for myself for my artwork, I'm seeing some of these crazy beetles that
Yeah.
people are keeping. And there's like so many cool creatures out there, so many cool insects and arachnids and invertebrates that a lot of people have never heard of or aren't familiar with that I just think are really fascinating. So I think it's something that like it may not be super snazzy and super exciting for everybody, but I always think it's really neat learning about them because they don't get a whole lot of representation.
I'm
Um,
down.
Yep.
You know me, I'm down. I'm open to all type of.
And then we
all
need a
type of
good
topics.
entomologist.
I mean,
I know someone at the St.
Yeah.
Louis Zoo that worked in entomology. He was a keeper in entomology department for a lot. Oh, look at that gift! Oh, that was
That was
very
cool.
appropriate. That was awesome, Quartz. She looked hard for that one. I've never seen that gift before. She dug through the menu on that one.
That's the first time I seen that one.
Yeah, so I know of an entomologist. I'm family. We grew up with his kids, and there's his parent. He's I don't know if he's retired yet or not, but he was a reptile and insect guy, and so maybe we could have him on the Borchards. So maybe that might be something we could look into. Great suggestion, because that's what I'm looking for. Something interesting that just to expand the community, but also I don't care if 20 people watch or 800, whatever. It's all about the education, because our viewers, we hold double the average viewership for our shows. The likes and the amount of people viewing may change, but all that matters is good content, and I think good things will come eventually. So that's what I was coming to you about, is your content, you got the background, so I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you're saying, there's so many really cool topics out there. There's so many really cool things to go over. It's there's so much to learn about.
So what's next for you? Are you going to launch your own marker line? Are you going to name brand something and get it out there? What's next for you?
Currently trying to figure out this whole TikTok live streaming thing. Truthfully, we just started doing that, and Chris has 4 cameras set up. He's got the little black magic box where he's bouncing back and forth.
Man, I saw your last live. I even commented. I was at the dealership getting oil change, and I was like, "What is this wizardry?" Because she's got a live dread, you would shit your pants. The camera gently pans from one zone to the other. She's got like 4 cameras, but you don't see anything in the background. And she'll be drawn this way, and the sunlight just feathers through so gracefully through the windows. And then there's one over her shoulder point of view, and then there's one from straight on. And the camera's just switching these views, and I'm like, your phone hasn't moved. What the hell did you do? And Chris has got I think a brother, you said, that knows this IT stuff really well, and videography and stuff, and they hooked up some voodoo with some software and put some cameras together, and bro, it is pro level.
That is awesome.
It's like having your own film crew. It was so cool. I was jealous.
Very, very, very lucky. I'm very grateful to have a wonderful, handy dandy, magical Chris, and Andy, and our buddy Daniel as well, that's been helping with all that.
I even said that on the live. I said, "Oh man, I need me a Chris."
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely been neat learning about it. And just because I truthfully got pretty burnt out for a while with trying to balance and juggle all the different platforms. And so that's kind of why I took a step back from TikTok, and I wasn't posting consistently or regularly because I was having a really hard time trying to find a balance between the amount of work that I needed to get done. Okay, now that I've got the artwork done, which is a lot of work, now I've got to have it recorded, I've got to edit videos for it, I've got to post photos of it. It for every piece that I do in the mornings, that's maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours long, sometimes 2.5 hours like today, I'm not done with it until maybe 1:30 because I'm photographing it. I am getting the image ready for the website. I'm posting on my Patreon as well, and getting the live stream on there. I'm getting the reference images. I'm getting photos of all the markers that I used. So there's a lot that goes into it. And before I really had a method nailed down, I wasn't posting consistently. And it's something that I'd say I'm definitely doing now because I'm doing these daily streams.
Are you simulcasting? Are you using OBS? Have you guys? I'm trying to figure that out. Because there is a way that I can do TikTok Live Studio to YouTube at the same time and run a live, and I've got to figure it out. I'm not that techie, but I'm going to hopefully use the Christmas break to tackle that. So, do you guys do that at all?
It's called. I know this because Chris has mentioned it multiple times. I'm trying to remember the name of the platform, but yes, we basically have the Black Magic box connected to the computer and everything. Streamlabs, I think. Is it Streamlabs? So we've got TikTok and YouTube going at the same time.
Dude.
One thing we found today is it shows up as gaming on my TikTok. Whenever people are going through, instead of the art category, it automatically goes into the gaming category because that's all they have. They only have... it's mostly for people that are gaming and streaming.
OBS, yeah. Well, I'm trying to OBS, and you're right.
Oh, I don't know anything about this, so I'm learning about it. And so we've got both of those platforms live. I know we were talking about maybe doing the paid version where you could do more than 2, but yeah, we're just learning about it now. This is all brand new to us.
It's above my head. I'm trying to figure it out.
It's a lot.
That's very cool though. Okay, well that's rad. And do your Patreon. Let's if people wanted to join your Patreon, is your Instagram the best place, or how do they read? Do they go to your website, your .com? Is that what they should do?
Well, the Instagram will take you to my website. My website has all my social media links on top. And so instead of using a link tree, I just decided to take it upon myself to make my homepage my link tree. So I've got all the different icons for the different platforms that we're on, and then we've got the Patreon buttons on there as well. And the web shop is connected to it too, so people can browse, see what originals I have or prints that I have available, and check out the Patreon or follow me on any of the platforms on there.
Yeah, I was looking at some of your green tree python black hoodies just yesterday, so I definitely was checking out the website. I've poked around on. Well, let's pimp your Patreon. What's the benefits of it? What do members get if they join your Patreon? What are the benefits of that?
So truthfully, I don't have them all memorized, and I still have to look at a little piece of paper in front of me sometimes. But members and the Froglet tier and up get access to the full unedited live streams of each of my morning sketches. And in that, I drop in the reference image used. I drop in information about the animals, the markers that I use specifically. Sometimes I'll critique my pieces as well and put in anything that I would change or adjust. So those members get access to all of the full live streams, as well as additional sketches that I work on. Sometimes the client work that I'm doing, I'll post on there as well and say, hey, this is what I'm working on this week. I've got a few different jobs that I'm working on. These are some of the sketches for some of those concepts. So it's a bit of a more behind the scenes. I also do studio tours. We're always updating the art studio and always trying to change it and improve it. So it's definitely changed a lot since my first video at the first of the year, when it was completely filled with antique furniture. So do studio tour videos. I'm hoping, again, because we're learning and we're figuring out how to teach and figuring out how to do all the video, I would like to start doing some small tutorials on there that will be easy to do step by step. So I've got some lesson plans kind of.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way, as opposed, I was just joking about like having your own brand of markers or brushes, because I know that's a major, hundreds of thousands of dollars to commission a factory to do that and everything else, and then legalities. But yeah, I'm sure teaching is an avenue that's a lot easier with a lot less legal headache and a lot less skin in the game, as far as, well, you got to commission a factory to build, you need to buy 10 semi trucks full of brushes before you put your name on it. You're like, okay, never mind. So teaching, I feel like you could reach more people in a more genuine way. And that's probably a great way to kind of take a personal approach to what you do and let people plug it into their life, as opposed to having a name on a brush or a marker, but taking that education. Do any colleges or anybody reach out to you to come teach, or just an adjunct professor or anything like that?
I've had, like at Daytona, there was like a head of an art department that came over that was talking about having me come in at some point, but nothing never came of that. There is an art studio here locally in Crystal Lake called Creative Arts Classes, and they teach a lot of classes for children, young adults, and some adult classes in all kinds of different mediums. And so I've been a guest artist there, where I would bring in my educational animals and the kids would do live drawings with me of the reptiles. And so that was pretty.
Wow.
So I have done that a few times, but outside of that, no. I am very new to teaching artwork. I've taught wildlife education for years and years. I used to teach people how to take care of their pets, or how to troubleshoot things, how to manage their aquariums, but teaching artwork is something very new to me. And so I'm doing my best to kind of explain step by step what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I truthfully don't always have a plan. I don't always know what I'm going to do before I do it. And so I just try to explain my thought process while I'm putting stuff down. So I really appreciate, all my patrons have been super wonderful. They give me great feedback. They let me know how things are going, if there's something that I can explain better, and let me know different things that they're interested in learning as well. And I did forget to mention, we do once a month raffle for an original study for our Patreon members as well. I believe the Froglet tier and up. But so yeah, there's a chance to be able to win some original artwork in the raffle.
Wow. Okay, that's really cool.
Make it fun.
Because I keep bothering you about that one piece. I won't mention it, Brazilian Rainbow Boa. But whenever you do, I want to find out. I want that original. That's one thing you don't see a lot of art done on by anybody. Of course, there's emeralds and there's green tree pythons. You see that quite, that's just such a magnetic animal. You don't see many Brazilian rainbow boas. So whenever you do, I'm gonna be knocking on your door.
I need to do it. I just need to do it. I gotta.
That's so cool. Do you think your skills changed at all over the years? Like in the last 4, do you think you've upped what you can accomplish now?
I wish I could pull it up so that way you could see it. What's really fun for me is going back and looking at some of my early pieces versus current pieces. And the pied ball python in comparison to the ball python that I did this year, it's really fun to see that because it's the same species, so it's a little bit more obvious. But being able to see the details in it, I would say is a pretty big change. And I'm pretty proud of, how far it's come. And I'd love to see in the next 4 years, what the artwork will be looking like then. So it's definitely neat to be able to see the progress. And I'm always trying to continue to push myself to getting better.
Do you have one favorite piece that you've done?
Hmm.
Or is it just many favorites?
I
Because
love all my children.
yeah, well, I mean, they all bring something different to the table. I mean,
I do
that's
have
gonna be a hard one.
favorites. I don't know if I can pick only one. I think one of my main top favorites for a long time was the Black Cayman. I really liked the shine on his scales, and I liked how I tried to get as many details in his face as possible. And truthfully, I critique the hell out of all my pieces when I'm done with them.
Right.
And not in a way to be mean to myself. I'm not tearing myself down. I am looking at the areas that I can improve. And for that piece, that was a piece I was very happy with. And it was maybe the first piece that when it went to its home, I felt that a little bit.
Oh, there you go.
Really?
I love it.
Usually for a lot of my pieces, I'm happy to see them being enjoyed in new homes. I feel like I'm ready for them to go and fly the nest. But that piece was a little bit tough to see go. But it went to a really wonderful longtime client that literally has supported me since day one. And so it couldn't have gone to a better person that appreciates it. So that was really nice. The Nile crocodile, or the Siamese crocodile was a little bit hard to let go. I liked that one a lot too, but it was for crocodile conservation. So that's literally the point of why I like doing wildlife art, is to try to support the animals themselves. And so it was tough seeing that one go, but at the same time, I was really happy to try to do whatever I could to be able to help give back. So I would say those two would probably be in my favorites. The piece that won the Copic Regional Award for North America was a piece from 2021. And it's funny because I liked it, but I still had a lot of things that I probably would have changed with it. And that ended up winning that regional award. And I didn't know about it until I stumbled upon it and found out that I had won it. Judges' comments were really cool on there too. So that was pretty exciting. So that one kind of re-entered my favorites, even though I kind of critiqued it a little bit.
Yeah,
Probably
that is so cool.
I love
Man.
crocodilians. They're fun.
Shan says she's got a couple of your prints and love them. And Oliver down there in the comments sees you every year at Daytona.
Oh, thank you guys. I appreciate the support. Daytona is so much fun. It is such a blast.
I'm going to go this year. I'm going this year. Yeah, I've got to. It'll be the first time for Daytona, yeah.
It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, I want to go. I'm on a road trip, I guess. I don't know. But I'm definitely want to go. It's in August. So
And if you go, you're going to want to plan a lot of fun stuff while you're down there, because there's so many amazing facilities all around the area. And when I first went down there the first year, I was like, all these things are in Florida. I'm going to hit up all of them, not realizing that Florida is really long.
Yeah,
it is. It is. It's 8 hours to go from top to bottom. It's a long way.
There's so many cool things to check out, and so much fun herping to do. That's our
big time.
It's our favorite show because of that.
That is a huge herp.
That's awesome.
Hey, Dred, give me 1 second, Dred. I'll be right back. 1 second.
I will be doing the Daytona shirts this year as well, so I'm excited to start working on that.
Oh, that's really cool.
So,
I was going to say on that. So they asked you to do that, or?
yeah, so Wayne reached out a couple years ago, and we talked about it, and so I did the last 2 shirt designs for them. So
Now, is he letting you run with it, or is this is like he got an idea, or is like how you guys collabing on that?
he's pretty particular about what he likes. But you know that is a great thing sometimes too. Sometimes it's really helpful to be able to have a direction or basically a baseboard to jump off of when it
Right,
comes
right.
to somebody's idea. So
Wow, that was super awesome.
yeah, he's a hoot. He is so funny, and I'm looking forward to working on this next year's shirt. He definitely likes having it done way in advance, so he's a man of preparedness, that's for sure.
Can't wait to see that. That's going to be really cool. She's doing the Daytona shirts.
Oh
The
yeah, she
art
does
for
all
the
the
shirt.
NARBC.
Yeah,
That's
for the
like the whole
shirts. Yeah.
table at St. Louis. You'll see it in Pomona, Dread. There's a whole table full. The one I wanted, only all I had left were smalls, though. I think I would have got one. I love them.
I haven't gone out west, but I did talk to Rami about it a while ago when I did one of his shows. So I'd love to make it out there. That would be fun.
That is NRBC though, right? NARBC.
No, so that is a
No.
reptile super show.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
okay.
reptile super show. Yes.
So I talked to Rami about shirts at some point, but we need to make it out there. We haven't even been to his shows out there yet, so that'd be
Yeah, it's
fun.
coming up quick. What, January 11 and 12 or something like that?
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
not far.
11. Yeah, I think it's the 11th, 12th. Yeah.
Oliver says it gets prints from you every year. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This has been such a great show. So
It is.
entertaining.
We're almost to 30,000 likes.
And this story, right? Your story is just so awesome. You know how you started and just the speed bumps you had to get over and things like that. This is super cool, and just the energy that you bring to the table and the love that you have, for the art and just what you're bringing back to the community and the wildlife. I mean, I know me being as a kid, I grew up watching everything National Geographic and Discovery, and I'd have my coloring books, and this is just so fun and so exciting. We're so very grateful to have you today.
Yeah, and what a cool guest. You're a really great
And
cherry on top for the year of how we
Yeah.
wanted the show to run and do different things. And this is just a really great tie it all together episode to wrap the year up.
this is
So I
bringing
think
us
the
into
timing
that
is
transition to go to the exotic pet, right? More exotic too, with having because you do all different types, and with us, getting into that next year, that 1 week a month, this is a really good tie-in. And
When I was
such a
looking at your
good way to wrap
Instagram,
it
I
up.
was surprised how many mammals she does. I didn't realize
Yeah.
you drew that many mammals.
I'm truthfully new at drawing mammals, so that's brand new for me. Equines, I've been drawing equines forever, but when it comes to like the thylacine piece, that is new. So I'm interested to see how the mammals go as well, because it's outside of horses. I haven't really done a whole lot of them, so it'll be cool.
I
That is
think
awesome.
your ball python drawing, painting that you did, that was just, the detail in that one was shocking. I mean, you took a normal and just made it so hyper realistic. And it's not just because, I mean, I have ball pythons, obviously, but I have two other species. And ball pythons I kind of backed into them. So it's not like I'm like this giant ball python fanatic. But when I saw that piece, I thought, wow, the realism of that one was, I think, some of your best. I can't put my finger on why, but it was just, it popped. And whatever you did technique-wise on that ball python blew me away. How long ago did you do that piece?
Right before Daytona, I think. I think it was like June. I have to look at my Instagram and see when I shared it, truthfully.
Did you do anything different?
I try to get as many details in there as I could. And I had a bigger piece of paper, so I was able to get more detail in there. So the first ball python was a pied that I had drawn from a friend of mine, actually, my friend here. And it was on a smaller piece of paper. At that time, I was very limited in the amount of colors that I had, and I didn't have the tools. And at that point, I didn't really have that much experience yet, And 4 years later, being able to do basically the same species and try to tackle it in a bit of a new way with more detail, with better tools and a bigger size was a lot of fun to be able to try to get as much detail as I could in.
That piece just blew me away. I mean, I think that's probably, it's hard to nail it down, but I think that, in my opinion, might be just one of your very best snake, just of that species, that just might be one of your just absolute best. It's just, I don't know why. Like I said, I couldn't put my finger on it. It was just amazing. You got some new fans following you on Instagram now. Wolf's Reptiles is a friend of ours on here. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
very talented, very talented. Yeah, you guys, if you're not tuned into her Instagram or her TikTok lives, come in, say hi, because I catch you. I'll pop in and out sometimes in the mornings when I
Yeah,
can
it's
catch you.
always fun seeing you pop in.
I try not to dominate the conversation because people sometimes are kind of quiet, and maybe I don't know if they're just like focusing or if it's something on in the background for them or whatnot. But just since you and I have chewed the fat a little bit and shoot the breeze, I'm like, oh yeah, what's going on? Like,
For sure. No, I absolutely love. I love chit chatting.
Oh yeah, y'all got to go check out our Instagram page.
please,
I've
and
already
join
been
the
on it several
Patreon.
times, and I'm looking at it again. Y'all got it. Yeah, this
Is
is just
is it
crazy.
Adeline Robinson Art? Is that or is it
Yes, Adeline Robinson
AdelineRobinson.com?
art.
Which one is your .com?
So AdelineRobinsonArt.com is my website, which will take you
Okay.
to all the social media links. So everything you can basically find all the ways to follow me off of my website. So instead of a link tree, I use my website as
I just want to
that.
make sure we did your .com. I didn't want to take off the word art at the end in case someone was searching. They'll probably find you anyhow with SEO.
Well,
There's
at
probably not a whole lot out there.
AdelineRobinson.com will also just go to AdelineRobinsonArt.com. So they're
Very
both.
smart. Very smart.
Boy, this red eyelash viper is very cool.
I'm a sucker for vipers. Vipers are super fun.
Oh, yeah. Bush
Species.
Vipers and
This,
Insularis,
this
man.
is awesome. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I can't wait to acquire me a piece at some point in the future. So,
Dude, these prints are super affordable. I mean, these prints
yeah.
you could get handfuls of them. I mean, they're just super affordable, and I think that's really a neat thing about your art is how approachable it is, both mentally and emotionally. Because the people that are there that like the animals, not just reptiles, but various stuff you do now. You're expanding into mammals and extinct species. It's going to draw all kinds of people in, and I think that the fact that your art is approachable, it isn't. Oh well, if you have to ask, you can't afford it. Like you don't have that approach, and so that's really super cool, and it just kind of brings more polish to you that I think that shine attracts people, and that's a great thing to be approachable and to be personable like you are, and I think it makes your art reach out all the much further.
Thank you. One of my goals when I
Awesome.
went full time was to be able to have art that is affordable because I think everybody should be able to enjoy art in their homes. And one thing I touched on the live today, because someone asked something similar, was there's been so many times where I've gone to like expos or different things, and there's artists there, and I really want to get something to support them, but I can't afford any of it.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to like show my appreciation for their work. And if I can, I'm like, well, I guess I'm not leaving with anything because
Yeah.
I can't.
Oh, this 8.5 by 11. This one is $1,600, but that's just a print. The original is 80,000. What?
A range of pieces, so that way, no matter what you're looking for. If you're looking for a high-end piece that, took me 30 something hours and you want to invest in an original piece, you can. At the same time, if you're, strapped for cash, you know, I've got $10 prints. I've got artwork for everybody.
Are you got 8.5 by 11 and 11 by 17? Do you do any larger prints, or does it become not very economical or easily damaged in transport? Or do you? What's the biggest prints you make?
At the shows, 8.5 by 11s, 11 by 14s, and 11 by 17s are what I
Okay.
bring. I don't look for anything larger because it gets to be a little bit too much at that point, but I do have canvas prints online. So
Okay.
people that have, like, say you've got a house with really big walls and you've got a really big space you would like to fill, I do have 24 by 36 size prints, canvas prints of most of my pieces, so that way you can do that.
Do they take your original and then vector it and then scale it so it stays perfect? They could print it on different media. Is that how you tackle that?
So that's one of the wonderful things Chris does is because he's a professional photographer. He takes high
Just
detail photos of everything and edits it to color match it to the original, and then we'll cut it out, which sometimes takes just as long as creating it, and then we'll lay it out on the canvas, and he puts the scientific names on there and lays it all out. So he does that with the prints. He does that with the canvases, and that's
awesome.
how.
See, I keep saying it. I need me a Chris. Damn.
Yeah, well, yeah, we do.
Do you do logos anymore?
I am cutting back on logos so that way I can kind of focus on developing more of my fine art because I was primarily logo based for so long. So depending on the project, I might be able to. It also kind of depends on the time of the year, whether or not it's show season or what else I have going on. So if you are interested in logos, feel free to look at my website. I've got logo information, pricing, examples on there. And then if it's something that you would like done, feel free to send me an email and let me know what it is you're looking for, and I can let you know whether or not it's something that I can actually get done. So I don't want to say I can get something done and then us be on the road, and be able to meet those timelines.
Right.
So I try to be very conscious
Yeah,
of.
between January and December, that's out. But there's a couple weeks, like right now, for example. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. You just travel so much. So do we need to let you get back to your party? I know we spoke beforehand.
Yeah, don't let us hold you up.
Yeah, you want to get back to your party and your people?
Everybody here they're super sweet. So the Birds of Bees Pet Shop, where I used to work, they still carry my artwork, and I'm still very close with everybody that works there, and I pop into the store all the time. So they're having a staff holiday party that we're part of, and so we'll probably be scooting fairly shortly to.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely understandable. Whatever guest comes on, whether it's an hour or 2.5, it doesn't. 3 hours, whatever happens. We don't script anything. That's how Dred and I roll. We are unscripted, naughty business. There's usually some tongue in cheeks and appropriate jokes. We just let it fly, and the conversation just goes where it goes, and that's the fun part about it. We don't pencil it. I mean, I research the guests and get to know them through their pages, and then via text or phone calls beforehand. But other than that, we just kind of let it rip.
We just wing it. I'll let him do what he does, and if I got to draw him back, I'll draw him back. But other than that, we roll with it. That's the only reason I'm here, just to keep him on track.
Keep me even keeled. I'm leaning to my left or right. I can't tell.
Too funny. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate you both. It was really fun chit-chatting. Like, I love chit. I could talk all day. I love chit-chatting.
Well, maybe next time, if you want to come back and do a show again with some painting or something, we'd be glad to have you back.
For sure.
Someone said she's entirely too nice and pretty to be here with most of us, riffraff.
Right, no doubt, Moose, no doubt. Yeah. Well, hey, happy holidays to you and your family. Y'all enjoy it. Have a lot of good time. Eat good. Rest, relax, and
enjoy your time down off the road.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely will. Thank you, and I'll be on tomorrow morning. So maybe I'll see you guys in the morning too.
Yep.